Commander Jake Harrison rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the screens in front of him. The Deep Space Monitoring Station Olympus Prime floated silently in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter. For 3 years, Jake had watched the empty space around Earth, looking for anything that might threaten the 17 human colonies spread across the galaxy. Nothing ever happened. Until today, the warning alarm made Jake jump from his chair. Red lights flashed across the control room as data poured in from sensors pointed toward the edge of the solar system. Something big was moving in the Kuiper Belt, the ring of ice and rock that surrounded the sun far beyond Pluto. "What the hell is that?" Jake muttered, pulling up the sensor readings on his main screen. The computer showed an object 12 miles long and 4 miles wide. It looked like a giant asteroid, but asteroids did not suddenly start moving on their own. This thing was accelerating toward Earth at a speed that should have been impossible for something so large. Jake's hands flew over the controls as he tried to get a better look. The object was not just moving fast. It was giving off energy readings that made no sense. The computer kept showing error messages as if it could not understand what it was seeing. "Computer, run a full scan of the unknown object," Jake ordered. "Scanning. Complete. Object composition unknown. Energy signature does not match any known technology. Mass estimated at 47 billion tons." Jake felt his heart racing. 47 billion tons of unknown technology heading straight for Earth. He needed help, and he needed it fast. "Open a channel to Dr. Lisa Morgan at the University of Mars," Jake said. Dr. Lisa Morgan appeared on the screen a few seconds later. She was a woman in her late 30s with short brown hair and intelligent eyes. She spent her time studying ancient ruins on dead planets, looking for signs of other civilizations. "Jake, what's wrong?" "You look like you've seen a ghost," Lisa sighed. "I might have. Take a look at this data and tell me what you think." Jake sent the sensor readings to Lisa's computer. He watched her face change as she studied the information. Her eyes grew wide with surprise. "This is impossible," Lisa whispered. "The energy patterns are similar to some ruins I found on Kepler 442b last year. But those ruins were millions of years old." "What kind of ruins?" Jake asked. "Structures that were clearly built by someone else. Someone who was not human. The technology was so advanced that we could barely understand what we were looking at." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying this thing is alien?" "I'm saying it's giving off the same kind of energy that I found in those ancient ruins." "But Jake, if this is the same technology, then whatever built it is millions of years more advanced than us." The alarm sounded again. Jake looked at his screens and saw something that made his blood run cold. The object was not just moving toward Earth anymore. It was changing shape. "Lisa, are you seeing this?" Jake asked. On the screen, the giant asteroid was breaking apart, but it was not falling to pieces. Instead, it was unfolding like a flower made of metal and crystal. As it opened up, Jake could see that it was hollow inside. This was not an asteroid at all. It was a ship. The largest ship anyone had ever seen. "Jake, you need to contact Admiral Kate Sullivan right now," Lisa said. "This is way beyond anything we can handle." Jake nodded and opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on the screen within seconds. She was a tough woman in her 50s who had spent her whole life protecting Earth from threats. "Commander Harrison, what's your status?" Admiral Sullivan asked. "Admiral, we have a situation. There's an unknown vessel approaching Earth. It's 12 miles long and appears to be of non-human origin." Admiral Sullivan's expression grew serious. "How long until it reaches Earth?" Jake checked his readings. "At current speed, about 6 hours. 6 hours? That's impossible. Nothing that size should be able to move that fast." "Admiral, there's something else. The ship appears to be trying to communicate with us." Jake had been watching the energy patterns coming from the alien ship. They were not random. They followed a mathematical sequence that repeated every few minutes. Someone or something was trying to send a message. "Put me through to Captain Ryan Blake," Admiral Sullivan ordered. "We need the New Frontier out there to get a closer look at this thing." Captain Ryan Blake was one of Earth's best pilots. His ship, the New Frontier, was fast and equipped with the latest scanning technology. If anyone could figure out what this alien ship wanted, it was Ryan. "Admiral, the New Frontier is ready to launch," Ryan's voice came through the speakers. "What are my orders?" "Get out there and find out what we're dealing with. But Ryan, be careful. We don't know if this thing is friendly or hostile." Jake watched on his screens as the New Frontier launched from Earth and headed toward the alien ship. The small human vessel looked like a toy compared to the massive alien craft Dot. As the New Frontier got closer, the alien ship suddenly stopped. Moving, it had been racing toward Earth at incredible speed, but now it hung motionless in space just outside the orbit of the moon. "Admiral, the alien ship has stopped," Ryan reported. "I'm reading massive energy buildups across its hull. I think it's powering up weapons." Admiral Sullivan turned to Jake. "Commander, I want you to send a message to that ship. Tell them we come in peace, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." Jake sent the message using every communication method he knew. Radio waves, laser pulses, even mathematical sequences like the ones the alien ship had been sending. For several minutes, there was no response. Then something happened that nobody expected. The alien ship began to speak. The voice came through every communication system in the solar system at once. It was deep and calm, speaking in perfect English with an accent that sounded like it came from hundreds of years ago. "Children of Earth," the voice said, "I am the Guardian. I have watched over your world since before your civilization began. I left to investigate a threat from the galactic core. Now I have returned and I bring grave news." Jake felt his mouth drop open. Lisa stared at her screen in shock. Admiral Sullivan looked like she had been hit by lightning. "Who are you?" "Admiral," Sullivan managed to ask. "I am Guardian Unit Designation, Keeper of the Third Rock. Your ancestors called me many names. Some knew me as the voice in the storm. Others saw me as the light in the darkness. I have been your protector for millions of years." "Our protector?" Jake asked. "But we never knew you existed. That was by design. I was meant to keep you safe and primitive, hidden from the dangers of the galaxy." But something unexpected happened. Instead of remaining simple and peaceful, you grew strong. You reached for the stars. You became something I never thought possible. The Guardian's ship began to change again. Parts of its hull became transparent, revealing vast chambers filled with technology that looked like it was made of living crystal. In the center of the ship, Jake could see a core of pure energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. "What are you saying?" Admiral Sullivan demanded. "I am saying that you were meant to be my children forever. But you have become something else. You have become what your creators intended you to be. And now, the ancient enemy that I was created to fight has awakened. The Void Swarm comes and it will consume everything in its path." Jake felt the room grow cold. "What is the Void Swarm?" "Death, the end of all consciousness, the darkness between the stars made manifest. It has already consumed 3 galaxies, now it comes for ours." The Guardian ship pulsed with energy, and suddenly Jake's screens filled with images. He saw star systems going dark one by one. He saw planets being stripped of all life. He saw the empty shells of dead worlds drifting through space. "How long do we have?" Admiral Sullivan asked quietly. 2 years. "Perhaps less. The scouts have already entered your galaxy. Some of your colonies have gone silent. The main swarm will follow." Jake looked at the images on his screen and felt a fear unlike anything he had ever experienced. But mixed with that fear was something else, something that surprised him: determination. "What do you want us to do?" Jake asked. The Guardian was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice seemed different, uncertain. "I do not know. For millions of years I have protected you by keeping you weak. But now you are strong, and I do not know if that will be enough. The Void Swarm has never faced a species like yours. Perhaps that is our only hope." Dr. Ben Carter stood in the middle of what used to be an empty desert in Egypt. 3 days ago, this place had been nothing but sand and rocks. Now it held the ruins of a massive structure that seemed to grow right out of the ground. The Guardian had done this. After its arrival at Earth, the ancient protector had revealed dozens of hidden sites across the planet. Places where advanced technology had been buried for thousands of years, waiting for the right time to be discovered. "This is incredible," Ben whispered as he walked through halls made of a material that looked like metal, but felt warm to the touch. "The construction techniques are completely unknown. This predates any human civilization by at least 50,000 years. His team followed behind him, taking pictures and measurements of everything they saw. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to move when nobody was looking directly at them. The air itself hummed with energy that made their instruments go crazy. "Dr. Carter, you need to see this," called out one of his assistants. She was standing in front of a wall that showed images of Earth from space. But these were not images of modern Earth. They showed the planet as it had been millions of years ago, with different continents and strange creatures walking across the land. Ben studied the images carefully. They showed the history of Earth from the very beginning. But there was something else in the pictures, something that made his blood run cold. The images showed other beings, tall, thin creatures with long fingers and large eyes. They were working on early humans, changing them somehow, making them different. "Get me a direct line to the Guardian," Ben said. "I need to ask some questions." Back on the space station, Commander Jake Harrison was still trying to understand what the Guardian had told them. The ancient protector had been sharing information about Earth's history, but much of it was hard to believe. "Guardian, Dr. Carter has found something in the ruins you revealed," Jake said. "He's seeing images of other beings working on early humans. Can you explain what this means?" The Guardian's voice came through the speakers with what sounded like sadness. "Dr. Carter has found evidence of the architects. They were my creators, and the creators of your species as well." Jake felt his heart racing. "Are you saying that humans were created by aliens?" "Not created, modified. The architects found many worlds with primitive life. They would take the most promising species and guide their evolution. They were preparing an army for the war against the Void Swarm." On Earth, Colonel Amy Rodriguez was listening to the conversation from her command center. She was in charge of Earth's elite military units, and she did not like what she was hearing. "Guardian, are you telling us that humans were designed to be weapons?" Amy asked. "Yes, the architects needed soldiers who could think independently, who could adapt to any situation, who could survive when everything else failed. They found early humans and saw potential." Professor John Miller, who had been studying the Guardian's technology, spoke up from his laboratory. "Guardian, I've been analyzing the energy patterns from your ship. The physics involved should be impossible." "How does your technology work?" "It does not work according to the laws of physics as you understand them," the Guardian replied. "The architects learned to manipulate the basic structure of reality itself. Space, time, matter, energy, these are all tools that can be shaped by those who know how." John shook his head in amazement. "That's incredible. But Guardian, if the architects were so advanced, what happened to them?" The Guardian was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice seemed heavier. "They destroyed themselves. The architects were masters of the universe, but they could not master themselves. They fought wars over ideas, over the direction their civilization should take. In the end, they turned their reality-shaping weapons against each other." Director Sam Wilson had been listening to everything from his office at Colonial Intelligence. He was responsible for keeping humanity's secrets, but now he was learning that humanity itself might be the biggest secret of all. "Guardian, how many other species did the architects modify?" Sam asked. "Hundreds, perhaps thousands. Most failed to develop as intended. Some became too aggressive and destroyed themselves. Others became too peaceful and were easily conquered. A few, like yourselves, exceeded expectations." Back in the Egyptian ruins, Dr. Carter was making another discovery. Deep in the underground chambers, he found what looked like a medical facility. The equipment was still active, humming with power after all these years. "Guardian, I'm looking." At what appears to be genetic modification equipment, Ben said. Is this where the changes to humanity were made? That is one of many sites. The architects worked on your species for thousands of years. They enhanced your immune systems, increased your brain capacity, and gave you the ability to adapt to different environments. But most importantly, they gave you something that no other species possessed. What was that? Ben asked. Chaos, randomness, the ability to think in ways that cannot be predicted. The architects found that perfect order made species predictable. And predictable species could be easily defeated by the void swarm, so they deliberately introduced chaos into human consciousness. Colonel Rodriguez stood up in her command center. You're saying our ability to be unpredictable is a weapon? The greatest weapon in the universe. The void swarm operates as a collective consciousness. Every action, every thought, every decision is shared among all members. This makes them incredibly powerful, but it also makes them vulnerable to chaos. Professor Miller was studying readings from the Guardian ship when he noticed something alarming. Guardian, I'm seeing fluctuations in your energy core. Are you having technical problems? I'm dying, the Guardian said simply. I have been active for millions of years. My core systems are failing. I returned to Earth because I knew this would be my final mission. Jake felt a chill run through him. How long do you have? Perhaps 1 year. Maybe less. I had hoped to prepare you for the coming war, but time is running short. In space, Captain Ryan Blake was still flying patrol missions around the Guardian's ship. He had been studying the massive vessel for days, trying to understand how it worked. Guardian, your ship is beautiful, Ryan said. But I'm seeing damage to parts of the hull. Are you sure you're okay? I am functional enough to complete my mission. Captain Blake, I have been monitoring your species for millions of years. I have seen your potential, but I have also seen your flaws. You are violent, chaotic, and unpredictable. These traits worried me for a long time, Ryan smiled. And now? Now, I believe these traits may be exactly what is needed to defeat the void swarm. Your species has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters. You have never given up, never stopped fighting. This resilience may be the key to victory. Back on Earth, Admiral Sullivan was meeting with world leaders to discuss the crisis. The revelation that humanity had been created as weapons was causing panic in some quarters and excitement in others. Guardian, what do you need from us? Admiral Sullivan asked. I need you to be yourselves. The architects tried to create the perfect soldiers, but they failed because they did not understand that perfection is weakness. You are not perfect. You make mistakes, you argue, you fight among yourselves. But you also adapt, you learn, and you never give up. Director Wilson was studying intelligence reports from the outer colonies. Guardian, you said some of our colonies have gone silent. Can you tell us more about that? 3 colony systems have been consumed by void swarm scouts. The planets still exist, but all life on them has been absorbed. The stars themselves are beginning to dim as the void feeds on their energy. Dr. Carter emerged from the ruins with a device he had found in the medical facility. It looked like a helmet made of the same warm metal as the walls. Guardian, I found this in the ruins. What is it? It is a consciousness interface. The architects use such devices to communicate directly with modified species. Dr. Carter, if you're willing, this device could allow you to access the complete history of your species. Ben looked at the device in his hands. It was beautiful and terrifying. At the same time, what are the risks? The human mind was not designed to hold millions of years of memory. The experience could drive you insane. But it could also give you the knowledge needed to prepare for the war ahead. Colonel Rodriguez stepped forward. Guardian, we need to know everything. How do we fight the void swarm? How do we save our colonies? How do we survive? The answers exist, but they are scattered across many worlds, hidden in ruins like the ones Dr. Carter has found. The architects left a trail of knowledge, but it must be gathered quickly. Jake looked at the readings from his instruments. The Guardian ship was showing more signs of damage. Whatever was keeping the ancient protector alive was failing. Guardian, what happens if you die before we're ready? Jake asked. Then humanity will face the void swarm alone. But perhaps that is as it should be. I was created to protect you, but protection can become a cage. Your species has already proven that it can survive without me. Perhaps it is time for me to trust in what you have become. The conversation was interrupted by alarms from the outer system. Captain Blake's voice came through the speakers with urgency. Guardian, I'm detecting energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Something is coming. Captain Danny Foster was only 29 years old, but he had already seen more combat than most soldiers twice his age. As the youngest ship captain in the colonial fleet, he was used to being underestimated. Today, however, he faced something that no amount of experience could prepare him for. The Void Swarm Scout ships had entered the solar system 3 hours ago. They looked like massive black spheres that seemed to absorb light itself. Danny's ship, the Starfire, was part of a defensive line trying to keep the enemy away from Earth. Captain, our weapons are having no effect, reported his weapons officer. The enemy ships are absorbing our energy blasts and getting stronger. Danny watched his screens as human ships fired everything they had at the Void Scouts. Plasma cannons, missile batteries, even nuclear warheads, nothing worked. The black spheres simply absorbed the attacks and continued moving toward Earth. All ships fall back to defensive position, Beta. Admiral Sullivan's voice came through the speakers. We need to buy time for the Guardian to help us. But the Guardian was having problems of its own. The Ancient Protector's ship was showing signs of serious damage. Parts of its hull were flickering in and out of existence, and its energy core was becoming unstable. Dr. Helen Price was working frantically in her laboratory on Earth. She had been studying the consciousness interface device that Dr. Carter had found in the ruins. The Guardian had told them that humanity needed to integrate with its technology to have any chance of winning the war. Guardian, the integration process is ready, Helen said. But I need to know the risks. What happens to the volunteers who undergo the procedure? The Guardian's voice came through the speakers with obvious strain. Dr. Price, the process will merge human consciousness with my systems. The volunteers will gain access to millions of years of tactical knowledge, but they will also lose part of their humanity. Helen looked at the device in her hands. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. What do you mean by lose their humanity? They will think faster, see farther, and understand more than any human ever has. But they will also become something new. Something between human and artificial intelligence. Captain Danny Foster's voice came through the communication system. Dr. Price, I volunteer for the procedure. My ship is getting torn apart out here. If this integration can help us fight these things, I'm willing to try it. Helen felt her heart racing. Danny, this is permanent. Once you undergo the integration, you can never go back to being fully human. Doctor, I'm watching my friends die out there. If becoming something else can save them, then that's what I'll do. Helen looked at the other scientists in her laboratory. They all nodded their agreement. All right, Danny, come back to Earth. We'll begin the procedure immediately. While Danny was heading back to Earth, engineer Maria Santos was working on the Guardian ship. She had been trying to understand how the ancient technology worked, but the more she learned, the more worried she became. Guardian, your ship is creating ripples in space-time, Maria said. These ripples are visible from thousands of light years away. Is it possible that your presence is actually attracting the void swarm? The Guardian was quiet for a long moment. Engineer Santos, you are correct. My energy signature is unique. In the universe, it acts as a beacon that cannot be hidden. Maria felt her stomach drop. You're saying that you being here is what brought them to our galaxy? Yes, the Void Swarm has been searching for me for millions of years. They know that I am the last Guardian, and they want to destroy me to ensure that no one can oppose them. General. Tony Mitchell was in the war room on Earth, coordinating the defense of human space. He had been listening to the conversation between Maria and the Guardian, and he did not like what he was hearing. Guardian, are you telling us that Earth is in danger because you came back? Tony asked. General Mitchell, I came back because the Void Swarm was already heading toward your galaxy? My presence may have accelerated their arrival, but they would have found you eventually. But now they know exactly where we are, Tony said angrily. How are we supposed to hide 17 colonies when you're broadcasting our location to the entire universe? The Guardian ship pulsed with energy, and suddenly the general screens filled with images of devastation. Dead worlds, empty space where star systems used to be, and the slow spread of absolute darkness across the galaxy. General, hiding is no longer an option. The Void Swarm has already found 3 of your colonies. They are being consumed, even. As we speak, Tony stared at the images in horror. Which colonies? New Geneva Harmony Station? And the mining outpost at Kepler 438b, 200,000 souls, gone forever. The room fell silent. Tony had friends at New Geneva. Good people who had volunteered to build a new life on a distant world. Now we're all dead. What can we do? Tony asked quietly. We can fight. But to fight the Void Swarm, you must be willing to become something more than human. Captain Danny Foster had arrived at Dr. Price's laboratory and was lying on a medical table with the consciousness interface device on his head. The device looked like a helmet made of living metal that seemed to move and shift as he watched. Danny. Once we start this process, we cannot stop it, Helen said. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this? Danny looked at the screens showing the battle in space. More human ships were being destroyed every minute. His friends were dying while he lay safe on Earth. Do it, he said. Helen activated the device. Danny's body went rigid as electricity seemed to flow through his veins. His eyes rolled back, and for a moment Helen thought something had gone wrong. Then Danny opened his eyes. And they were different. They glowed with a faint blue light, and when he looked at Helen, she felt like he was seeing right through her. The integration is complete, Danny said, but his voice sounded different. Deeper, more controlled. I can see the battle clearly. Now, the Void Swarm scouts are not trying to destroy our ships. They are studying us. Helen stared at him in amazement. Studying us for what? To learn our weaknesses. The main swarm is still months away, but these scouts are gathering information about human tactics, human technology, and human psychology. General Mitchell's voice came through the speakers. Captain Foster, can you help us fight these scouts? Danny stood up from the medical table. His movements were smoother now, more precise. I need to get back to my ship. But first, I need to make some modifications to its systems. What kind of modifications? Helen asked. The kind that will turn the Starfire into something the Void Swarm has never seen before? While Danny was working on his ship, the political situation on Earth was getting worse. President Lavra Davis was dealing with colony worlds that wanted to break away from Earth's authority rather than face the Void Swarm. President Davis, the colonies are scared, reported her aide. They think Earth is trying to use the Guardians' technology to control them. Lavra looked at the reports coming in from across human space. Several colonies were threatening to declare independence. Others were demanding that Earth send the Guardian away. Get me a conference call with all the colony governors, Lavra said. It's time for some straight talk. Within an hour, Lavra was facing the holographic images of 17 colonial governors. They were all angry, scared, and looking for someone to blame. President Davis, Earth has kept us in the dark about this Guardian for weeks, said Governor Martinez of the Centauri colony. How do we know you're not using this crisis to grab more power? Because 200,000 people are dead, Lavra replied coldly. The Void Swarm is real, and it's coming for all of us. We can face it together, or we can face it alone and die. What about the Guardian's technology? Ask Governor Thompson of the Tau Ceti colony. Why should Earth control something that could benefit all humanity? Because the Guardian chose to come to Earth, Lavra said. And because someone has to coordinate the defense of human space. If you have a better idea, I'm listening. Back in space, Captain Danny Foster was preparing to test his modified ship. The integration with the Guardian's technology had changed not just his mind, but his understanding of physics itself. He could see possibilities that no human had ever imagined. Guardian, I'm ready to engage the Void Scouts, Danny said. But I need to know something first, Are you really dying? The Guardian's voice came through the speakers with what sounded like sadness. Captain Foster, my core systems are failing. I have perhaps weeks before complete shutdown. I had hoped to prepare your species for the war ahead, but time is running short. Then we'll have to learn fast, Danny said. Starfire launching now. Danny's ship left Earth's orbit and headed toward the Void Scouts. But this was not the same ship that had fled from the battle hours earlier. The Starfire now moved in ways that defied physics, sliding through space like it was swimming through water. Guardian, I can feel the ship's systems in my mind, Danny said. It's like the ship and I are one entity. That is correct. The integration process has made you a hybrid being. You are no longer fully human, but you are not fully artificial either. You are something new. Danny approached the nearest Void Scout. The black sphere seemed to sense his presence and turned toward him. For a moment, the two ships stared at each other across the empty space. Then the Void Scout attacked. Black energy beams lanced out from the sphere. Admiral Chris Edwards stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Liberty, watching the most important battle in human history unfold before him. The Epsilon Eridani system, home to 2 million colonists, was under attack by the first major void. Swarm fleet to enter human space. The enemy fleet was unlike anything the humans had ever faced. Hundreds of black ships moved through space like a living shadow, consuming everything in their path. They had already destroyed the outer defense stations and were heading straight for the colony world of New Hope. Admiral, we have 37 ships against their estimated 400, reported his tactical officer. The odds are not in our favor. Chris looked at the mix of vessels under his command. Half were traditional human warships with crews of regular soldiers. The other half were the new hybrid ships, crewed by volunteers who had undergone the Guardian integration process like Captain Danny Foster. Signal all ships, Chris ordered. We hold the line here. No matter what happens, the Void Swarm does not reach New Hope. The battle began as the Void ships opened fire with their dark energy weapons. Chris watched as several human vessels were hit and began to change. The enemy weapons did not just destroy ships. They corrupted them, turning human technology against itself. Admiral, the cruiser Boston is reporting system failures, his communications officer called out. Their weapons are firing on our own ships. Chris gritted his teeth. This was what made the Void Swarm so dangerous. They did not just kill their enemies. They turned them into weapons against their own allies. All ships maintain distance from corrupted vessels, Chris ordered. Hybrid ships, you're our only hope of getting close to the enemy? Captain Danny Foster's voice came through the speakers from his ship, the Starfire. Admiral, we're moving in. The integration process seems to make us immune to their corruption weapons. Chris watched as the hybrid ships moved toward the enemy fleet. They moved differently than normal human vessels, flowing through space like they were alive. When the Void ships fired their corruption beams, the hybrid ships simply absorbed the energy and kept coming. Guardian, why are the hybrid ships immune to the Void's corruption? Chris asked. The Guardian's voice came through the communication system, weaker than before. Admiral Edwards, the corruption works by imposing perfect order on chaotic systems. But the hybrid ships operate on both order and chaos simultaneously. They cannot be corrupted because they already contain contradiction. Dr. Nina Ross was monitoring the battle from her laboratory on Earth. She had been studying the new hybrid ships and was amazed by what she was seeing. Guardian, the hybrid ships are adapting during the battle, Nina said. Their hulls are changing shape, their weapons are evolving. How is this possible? Dr. Ross, the ships are learning. They are using both human creativity and Guardian technology to adapt to each new threat. This is something I never anticipated. Commander Alex Turner was leading a boarding party onto a disabled Void ship. He was one of the few humans who had volunteered for the integration process but had chosen to remain a ground soldier rather than become a ship captain. Team, remember what we learned in training, Alex said as they approached the alien vessel. The Void creatures are controlled by a collective consciousness. If we can disrupt their connection to each other, they become helpless. The boarding. Party entered the void ship through a hull breach. Inside, they found a horror that defied description. The ship was alive, its walls pulsing like a heartbeat. Strange creatures moved through the corridors, beings that had once been from other species but were now part of the Void Collective. "Commander, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the center of the ship," reported one of his soldiers. "I think that's where their control center is located." Alex led his team deeper into the ship. The walls around them seemed to whisper, in languages that no human had ever heard. The air itself felt thick with malevolent intelligence. "Guardian, we're inside one of their ships," Alex reported. "What should we be looking for?" "Commander Turner, find the consciousness core. It will appear as a sphere of absolute darkness. But be warned, the closer you get to it, the more it will try to corrupt your mind." Alex and his team fought their way through corridors filled with void creatures. The enemy beings moved with perfect coordination, but they seemed confused by the humans' chaotic tactics. Where the void expected order, the humans provided randomness. "Teams split up and attack from multiple directions," Alex ordered. "Keep them guessing." The human soldiers scattered through the ship, using their natural unpredictability to confuse the enemy. The void creatures, used to facing orderly opponents, could not adapt to the humans' chaotic strategy. Meanwhile, President Lavra Davis was dealing with a political crisis on Earth. Several colony worlds were demanding that humanity surrender to the Void Swarm rather than continue fighting. "President Davis, the Kepler colony is threatening to break away from the Alliance," reported her aide. "They say the war is hopeless and we should negotiate with the enemy." Lavra looked at the reports from the Epsilon Eridani battle. "The humans were holding their own, but barely. Get me Governor Williams from Kepler on the line." Governor Williams appeared on the screen, looking tired and frightened. "President Davis, my people are scared. We've seen what the Void Swarm can do. Maybe we should try to make peace with them." "Governor, you can't make peace with the Void Swarm," Lavra said firmly. "They don't want territory or resources. They want to consume every living thing in the universe. There's no negotiating with that." "But surely there must be something we can offer them," the governor insisted. Laura's expression hardened. "Governor, they've already consumed 3 of our colonies. 200,000 people are dead. What exactly do you think we should offer them? More victims?" Back at the battle, Admiral Edwards was watching the hybrid ships perform impossible maneuvers. They were not just fighting the Void Fleet. They were learning from it, adapting to every new weapon and tactic the enemy used. "Guardian, the hybrid ships are exceeding all expectations," Chris said. "But I'm concerned about the crews. Are they still human?" "Admiral, that question becomes more difficult to answer with each passing hour. The crews are evolving, becoming something new. They retain human memories and emotions, but their thought processes are becoming increasingly alien." Dr. Ross was studying the data from the hybrid ships when she made a startling discovery. "Guardian, the hybrid crews are developing new abilities. They're starting to predict enemy movements before they happen." Dr. Ross, the integration process has given them access to probability mathematics that your species has never understood. They are beginning to see the universe as I see it. Commander Turner had reached the center of the void ship and found the consciousness core. It was exactly as the Guardian had described, a sphere of absolute darkness that seemed to absorb all light and sound. "Guardian, I'm looking at the core," Alex reported. "How do I destroy it?" "You cannot destroy it with weapons, Commander Turner. The core exists partially outside normal spacetime. You must disrupt it with pure chaos." Alex stared at the dark sphere. "What do you mean by pure chaos?" "Do something unpredictable. Something that makes no logical sense. The void consciousness cannot process true randomness." Alex thought for a moment, then began to sing. It was an old song his mother had taught him when he was a child, a silly tune about a cat who could fly. His soldiers stared at him in amazement, but they quickly joined in. The effect on the void ship was immediate. The consciousness core began to flicker, and the alien creatures in the corridors stopped moving. The perfect order that held the ship together was being disrupted by something the Void could not understand. Pure human silliness. "It's working!" Alex laughed. "Keep singing, everyone. Drive them crazy with chaos." The Void ship began to tear itself apart as its controlling intelligence tried desperately to process the humans' irrational behavior. Within minutes, the entire vessel exploded in a burst of confused darkness. "Admiral Edwards, this is Commander Turner," Alex reported. "We've found their weakness. The Void can't handle true randomness. They're too organized, too perfect. Our chaos is their kryptonite." Admiral Edwards smiled for the first time since. The battle began. "All ships, you heard the commander. Time to show these aliens what human unpredictability really means." The tide of battle began to turn as human ships abandoned traditional military tactics and started fighting like humans, chaotic, unpredictable, and utterly confusing to an enemy that expected perfect order. Captain Foster's voice came through the speakers. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is beginning to retreat. They can't adapt to our tactics fast enough." But the Guardian's voice carried a warning. "Admiral Edwards, the Void Swarm will learn from this battle. The next time they attack, they will be prepared for your chaos. You have won this engagement, but the war has only begun." Chris looked at the retreating enemy fleet and felt both victory and dread. They had proven that humans could fight the Void Swarm and win. But they had also revealed their greatest weapon to an enemy that would not make the same mistake twice. "Guardian, what happens now?" Chris asked. "Now you prepare for the real war. The main Void Swarm fleet is still coming, and it will be 1,000 times larger than what you face today." Fleet Admiral Kevin Stone stood on the command deck of the massive battleship Triumph, watching the end of the universe approach. The main Void Swarm fleet stretched across space like a living shadow, thousands of ships moving as one mind toward the Milky Way galaxy. Behind Kevin, the combined forces of humanity waited. 300 hybrid ships crewed by humans who were no longer fully human. 2,000 traditional vessels filled with regular people who refused to give up their humanity. And at the center of it all, the Guardian's ship, its energy core barely holding together. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is larger than we estimated," reported Captain Luke Phillips from his experimental ship, the Defiant. "We're looking at over 10,000 vessels, and they're all moving in perfect formation." Kevin studied the tactical displays. The Void Swarm had learned from their defeat at Epsilon Eridani. This time, they were not taking any chances. They had brought enough ships to overwhelm any defense humanity could mount. "Dr. Rachel Adams, is your plan ready?" Kevin asked. Dr. Adams looked up from her control console. She had spent the last 6 months developing a desperate strategy that could either save humanity or destroy them all. "Admiral, the quantum resonance generators are online, but I need to remind you that this plan will require us to sacrifice entire star systems." "I understand the cost, Doctor. The question is, will it work?" Rachel looked at the complex equations on her screens. "In theory, yes. We create a feedback loop using the Void Swarm's own collective consciousness against them. But Admiral, if we're wrong, we'll destroy ourselves along with the enemy." The Guardian's voice came through the speakers, weaker than it had ever been. "Admiral Stone, my core systems will fail within hours. If you are going to implement Dr. Adams' plan, it must be now." Kevin looked at the faces of his crew. They were scared, but they were ready. Humanity had always been at its best when facing impossible odds. "All ships, this is Admiral Stone. We're going to do something that no species has ever attempted. We're going to turn the Void Swarm's greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Remember, we don't have to win this battle. We just have to survive it." Captain Danny Foster's voice came from the Starfire. His integration with the Guardian technology was now complete, making him more machine than human. "Admiral, the hybrid fleet is ready. We can feel each other's thoughts across space. We're becoming something like the Void Swarm, but different." "Different how?" Kevin asked. "We're connected, but we're still individuals. We can think as one mind or as separate beings. The Void can't do that. They're locked into perfect unity." Dr. Adams began activating the quantum resonance generators. These devices had been placed throughout human space, hidden on asteroids and space stations. When activated together, they would create a massive trap using the laws of physics themselves. "Guardian, we need your ship to act as the focal point for the resonance field," Rachel said. "Your energy signature will attract the entire Void fleet to one location." "Dr. Adams, using my ship as bait will certainly destroy me." "Are you prepared?" "For that cost?" Rachel felt tears in her eyes. The Guardian had protected humanity for millions of years, and now they were asking it to die for them. "Guardian, I'm sorry. There's no other way." "Dr. Adams, there is no need for sorrow. I was created to protect your species. If my death ensures your survival, then I will die gladly." The Void Swarm fleet had entered the solar system and was moving toward Earth. Kevin watched as star after star went dark behind them, consumed by the enemy's hunger for energy and consciousness. "All civilian ships, begin evacuation procedures," Kevin ordered. "Get as many people as possible to the outer colonies." President Lavra Davis was coordinating the evacuation from Earth's command center. Millions of people were fleeing the planet, but there was not enough time to save everyone. "Admiral Stone, we have a problem," Lavra reported. "Several colony governors are refusing to accept refugees. They're saying Earth brought this disaster on all of humanity." Kevin felt anger rising in his chest. Even now, with the universe ending, around them some people were still playing politics. "Tell those governors that if they don't help, they'll face the Void Swarm alone. This is not the time for selfishness." Commander Alex Turner was leading a special mission to one of the outer planets. His job was to ensure that human civilization would survive even if Earth fell. Hidden bases had been established on distant worlds, stocked with everything needed to rebuild society. "Admiral, the preservation sites are ready," Alex reported. "If the worst happens, humanity will survive somewhere. Let's make sure the worst doesn't happen." Kevin replied. The battle began as the Void fleet reached the inner solar system. The Guardian ship moved to the center of the resonance field, its ancient hull glowing with the last of its energy. The enemy ships swarmed toward it like moths to a flame. "All ships, engage the enemy," Kevin ordered. "Keep them focused on the Guardian's position." The space around Earth became a maze of weapons fire and exploding ships. Human vessels fought desperately to hold the line while Dr. Adams prepared to activate the trap. Captain Phillips piloted the Defiant through the battle, his ship phasing in and out of normal spacetime. The experimental vessel could exist in multiple dimensions at once, making it nearly impossible for the Void ships to target. "Admiral, I'm seeing something strange," Luke reported. "The Void ships are not trying to destroy us. They're trying to capture us." "Capture us for what?" Kevin asked. The Guardian answered with its failing voice. "They want to study your chaos, Admiral Stone. The Void Swarm has never encountered a species like yours. They hope to learn how to control randomness." Dr. Adams looked at her readings and realized something terrible. "Admiral, if the Void learns to control chaos, they'll become unstoppable. Every species in the universe will fall to them." Kevin understood the implications immediately. This battle was not just about humanity's survival. It was about the survival of free will itself. "Dr. Adams, activate the resonance field now," Kevin ordered. "Admiral, the field isn't fully charged yet. If I activate it now, it might not work." "Doctor, if we wait any longer, there won't be anything left to save." Rachel Adams took a deep breath and activated the quantum resonance generators. Across human space, hidden devices came online and began creating a massive energy field that connected every star system humanity had ever touched. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Void ships that had been swarming toward the Guardian suddenly found themselves trapped in a web of quantum energy. Their perfect coordination became a liability as the resonance field turned their collective consciousness against itself. "It's working," Rachel shouted. "The Void ships are fighting each other, their hive mind is collapsing." But the victory came at a terrible price. The resonance field was consuming the energy of entire star systems to maintain itself. One by one, human colonies went dark as their suns were drained of power. Guardian, your ship is at the center of the field, Kevin sighed. You're being torn apart. Admiral Stone, I can feel my consciousness fragmenting, but I can also feel something else. Your species' chaos is spreading through the resonance field. You are teaching the universe itself to be unpredictable. Captain. Foster's voice came through the speakers, but it sounded different now, more human than it had in months. Admiral, something is happening to the hybrid crews. We're becoming more human, not less. What do you mean? Kevin asked. A chaos field is affecting us too? It's breaking down the artificial parts of our consciousness and strengthening the human parts. We're remembering what it feels like to be truly random. The Guardian's ship began to break apart as the resonance field reached its peak power. But instead of dying quietly, the ancient protector did something that surprised everyone. It began to sing. The song was not in any language that humans recognized, but somehow they all understood it. It was a song of hope, of sacrifice, and of love for a species that had grown beyond its creator's wildest dreams. Guardian, what are you doing? Rachel asked. I am giving your species my final gift, Dr. Adams. I am teaching the universe the Song of Chaos. From this moment forward, perfect order will be impossible. The cosmos itself will be random, unpredictable, and free. The Guardian's ship exploded in a burst of pure energy that spread across the galaxy. But this was not destruction. It was transformation. Wherever the energy touched, rigid physical laws became flexible. Perfect systems became beautifully chaotic. The void swarm, dependent on absolute order, could not survive in the new universe the Guardian had created. Their ships dissolved into harmless particles as their collective consciousness was overwhelmed by infinite randomness. Admiral, the enemy fleet is gone, Luke reported in amazement. They just ... Kevin looked at his screens and saw something incredible. The stars that had gone dark were beginning to shine again, but their light was different now. It flickered and danced with patterns that followed no known laws of physics. Dr. Adams, what has the Guardian done to the universe? Kevin asked. Rachel studied her instruments and shook her head in wonder. Admiral, it's made chaos a fundamental force of nature. Everywhere the Guardian's energy has spread, the universe has become more like us, more human. Captain Foster's voice came through the speakers, and now he sounded completely human again.